Yes.
Okay, great. So make sure. Good afternoon, everyone. We'll start in just a couple of minutes. Make sure that when you come in that you mute. You can turn your mute off and raise your hands if you want to be recognized. Also, you can send private messages to our moderators, which will be James Lyons and Cam Roberts. So if you have any technical issues or challenges, just send a private message to one of those. We'll start in just a second. Okay, for the sake of everyone's time, let's go ahead and get started. I wanted to wish you a good afternoon and welcome to the Faculty Senate meeting. This will be our first virtual Faculty Senate meeting. And I guess it's a positive note that we in some ways we're prepared given our use of WebEx during the semester. A couple of quick notes. First, please remember that in WebEx and kind of virtual conferencing ground rules, make sure your mic is muted. And if you want to be recognized, raise your hand. So if you scroll near the bottom of your screen in WebEx, you'll see that you can turn on the chat window. In the chat window, you can raise your hand. And when you do that, your name goes all the way to the top, and also there'll be a little noise that will alert us that you've raised your hand. Make sure also to sign in. So the sign in link there, go to uncg.edu/Senate meeting. Just heads up, there will be an emergency P&T policy coming soon, so please keep your eyes open for that. There will also be several university-wide elections coming out, so please participate and encourage your colleagues to do the same. And then lastly, I want to thank all of you for all that you've been doing, for enduring, accomplishing on behalf of UNCG, students, staff, and your colleagues. Cam, if you could pull up that ad. So UNCG has taken a full page ad out in the Chronicle of Higher Education to thank us. So it's very kind of the provost and the chancellor to recognize all the work that we've done. So, all right, with that being said, let's move to the approval of the minutes. Brett?
So you all received the minutes in the agenda packet. Please let me know if there are any corrections or additions or revisions or what have you to the minutes.
Okay, hearing no additions to the minutes, if you in your participant view can just click raise your hand to indicate approval of the minutes, please go ahead and do that now. Brad, do you want to provide that, or James, you want to provide that instruction in terms of raising your hand?
Yeah, in the participants panel, there's a button for raise hand. Should be a little picture of a hand.
You have to actually hover over your name in the participant list in order for it to show up.
Thank you, magical, helpful voice.
All right. So for the sake of ease of use, why don't we try this again, just using the chat window. So, actually, my apologies. We actually need a motion from the floor. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes? So moved, seconded. Okay. All those in favor indicate by saying aye, either with your hand or in the chat window. Okay. Please show that the ayes have it. All right. So what I'd like to do now is have Dana provide some provost remarks. Dana? We can't hear you.
How's that?
Perfect.
Okay,
Perfect, yes.
My apologies. I thank you for giving me a bit of time at your meeting today. I want to begin by saying that I hope that everyone is managing well and staying safe. And again, issuing my thanks to you. I believe the ad that Anthony displayed just a few moments ago expresses our sentiment about the hard work and commitment of all members of our university community. I do admire your perseverance at this challenging time. I know things are not always going smoothly. They're not always as we wish, but I am always pleased to see notes. I've had notes from students and even from parents expressing the appreciation they have for faculty and their hard work to ensure that we can have educational continuity. At the same time, I know that we have many students who are missing, if you will, that have not engaged in the online format, and that many students who have a number of concerns. I think you'll hear a bit more about those later today. But I am pleased to know that our university community is doing the best we can at a challenging time. And I'm confident we'll manage through this, and even in instances with a bit of humor where appropriate. I've been sent songs and poems about how to teach through Canvas and Zoom, and many, many pictures of instructors as well as students with their pets and other favored objects. So sometimes a little humor goes a long way. Whoever said that higher education was not agile, that it couldn't change, that it wasn't resilient, I think is being proven very wrong in this moment. And I think we should all be proud of our efforts. I have just a few points I want to highlight here today. First, I want to commend the University Tenure and Promotion Committee for work they're doing to move forward what I will call a stop the clock for those who are tenure earning during this period. You'll hear much more about that shortly, and I'm grateful for their efforts to help us formalize the action that we will take. Secondly, I want to give you early notice that you will be hearing soon, certainly within the next 2 weeks, about a program that we're going to put in place to provide support and professional development opportunities for faculty who are interested in converting a course to the online format this summer. This experience has taught us that those who have not had these experiences would well benefit from investing in formal structured workshops and one-on-one training. So we're going to roll out a structured program where we'll have some modest incentive money stipends for faculty to do this work in the summer. You know, we hope that we will never find ourselves in this disrupted situation again, but we know we cannot count on that. And we believe it would be a very wise investment to bring the resources we have to bear to get better prepared should we find ourselves here again. So please look for this opportunity. I'm hopeful that we can support up to about 150 faculty who are interested in spending some time this summer. Again, we expect the announcement within the next couple of weeks. Third, I want to say a quick word about faculty awards. Normally at this time of year, we're preparing to celebrate at a ceremony with wonderful videos, all the great teaching, research, and service accomplishments of our faculty. Because we cannot do that in person this year, we'll do the best that we can to offer recognition. The videos that are normally prepared are in production, but we're not confident we're going to have them available before the end of the semester because of disruption. So when those are available, we will share them widely and broadly with the community. But in advance of that, perhaps before the end of April, we will be sending information around to all members of the university community about the award recipients. We are going to be publicizing the award recipients in our local newspaper as a way to bring heightened recognition to their contributions at a time when we're very challenged to do otherwise. So please look for that. I would anticipate maybe 2 weeks out, we will have that news and information available. And when you see it, I urge you to jump online and congratulate your colleagues. We'll await a time in the future when we can have a formal reception and gather in celebration. Next, I'd like to report to you, because I know many of you have been very concerned about our students and their economic circumstances at this challenging time, that the university has mobilized a monumental effort as soon as we were given the go-ahead from system to do refunds for our students for housing and also dining. I think about 5,000 such refunds have been processed over the course of the last week. So that is encouraging news, at least to me, to hear, because I know that many are experiencing financial hardship at this time. The final thing I would like to do is remind everyone here of the importance of enrollment for the university and our future. We've had a lot of disruption this semester, and there is some concern that students may be discouraged, that they may not come back because of the hardships in their lives. And I hope you will help reinforce the message that at a time when we cannot do many of the other things we might like to do, such as travel, there's nothing more valuable than an investment in education. We do have a rich program of summer courses, the majority of which were actually designed to be online as opposed to converted on short order. So please spread the word to our students and encourage them to consider summer enrollment and to come back in the fall. So I'll pause there and be happy to take any questions or comments if you have them.
Thank you, Dana. Everyone, feel free to ask a question either by raising your hand. You can go ahead and click the mic or via chat. Okay. Yes, go ahead.
So Anthony, I am unclear. Am I to be monitoring the chat, or is someone going to alert me to any questions that appear?
Yes, I can go ahead and monitor the chat for you. So
Thank you.
question asked by Senator Reddick, if this gets prolonged, is there any chance of furloughs?
This is a very challenging time economically, as you can imagine. And heretofore, there's been no discussion of furloughs or the need to pull back employment in any way from our current population. I suppose it would be inappropriate for me to rule anything out, but I'm comforted by the fact that there's been no discussion at system from what I've been able to determine among the Board of Governors or even in the legislature. I think likely the reason for that is our focus on educational continuity. The fact that we have been able to continue the bulk of our operations is something I think that protects us to a large degree. We are very hopeful that we will be back operating normally for fall. We can't assure that at this point. We think we'll have a much better read before the end of May, but it is our hope, and I think we're pretty confident that we'll be in good stead if that schedule unfolds.
Thank you, Dana. And I'm sure the rest of the faculty and university would join me in thanking you for your leadership. There's a number of comments in the text area thanking you for all that you've done and the affirmative action that you've taken throughout this crisis.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving on to the next agenda item, we have Karen Bull, Todd Sutton, and David Teachout. They want to talk a little bit more about current and upcoming issues related to remote teaching.
Anthony, this is Dave Teachout. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm going to start by speaking a little bit about the end of course student feedback form. In her March 14th message to the faculty, the provost announced suspension of student evaluations of teaching for the spring 2020 semester. Those are typically used for faculty review and whatnot. What we've been asked to do is put together something in its place that's more of a informative feedback from the students about the experience that would go directly to course instructors. So the UTLC has been working closely with the Faculty Senate to develop such a form that will go, the results of which will go to course instructors only. And this tool has undergone a rigorous review process, having been adapted initially from UTLC's work on the successful evidence-based IDEA grant. Subsequent review and further edits were suggested by Julie Mendez-Smith, who's the Chancellor's Fellow for Campus Climate, Anthony Chow, Chair of the Faculty Senate, Laura Pipe, who is the Principal Investigator for the IDEA grant, myself, as well as Faculty Senate Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee, and the Faculty Senate Online Learning Committee. The students will receive an email, and this is very similar to their typical experience. They'll receive an email with a link to the Spring 2020 feedback form, and a link to the form will be also made live in Canvas. And this will begin this Monday, April 13th. That link will remain live through 11:59 p.m. on April 30th. Students will be sent several reminder emails with the link during this period. And then beginning Monday, May 11th, which is the Monday after finals are over, results will be made available directly to faculty only. And the purpose of this is just to help instructors learn what is working for their students during this unusual time. A second set of surveys that's more focused on the technology and how that's working for instructors and students is being constructed and will go out very soon. The purpose for instructors is to learn what tech tools and training are most valuable to them and has been most valuable as we've gotten into this process. And for the students is to learn what technology tools and the frequency of contact works best for students. And that information will help us as we work closely with instructors in developing their courses for the summer and the fall. So the results will be sent only to the team that has been supporting this transition from face-to-face to remote learning. That's ITS, UNCG Online, the UTLC, and your academic ITCs. Like I say, the goal is to learn what we can so we can help instructors provide a greater degree of pedagogical integrity as we move through the summer and into the fall. So now I'm going to turn it over to Karen to talk about the final exam supporting documents and ways to move forward with that.
Good afternoon, all. Can you hear me, Anthony or David, just to make sure we're good here?
Yes.
Okay, so thank you for your time this afternoon. I know that we're in the throes of delivering remote instruction to our students, and I appreciate all the hard work and the commitment that you have been doing to get that off the ground. And my hope is that you are all kind of hitting your stride and getting into a rhythm with this new circumstance that we're currently facing. And as you all have been doing that, we have been working with a whole host of individuals to create some documentation that the provost hopefully will send out by the close of this week, if not early next week, with regard to how to offer final assessments in your courses. It's going to be a little bit different, obviously, than we would have done if we had been face-to-face, but she'll be sending out guidance for that soon, and there will be resources that will be available to you. So if you feel a little bit of a hiccup or a pinch in this time, we are still here. That can be your academic ITCs, UNCG Online, ITS, UTLC, whole group of people I'm sure I'm forgetting that will be able to be here to help support you through that. So we just wanted to let you know that we're continuing to create new resources and get those out to you. So in the same token, I am now going to turn it over to Todd, who is going to speak a little bit to you about Respondus.
Sure. Thanks, Karen. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. So as many of you are aware, an area where we have some significant need is the ability to support you as you proctor exams in an online environment, right? We have had Respondus Lockdown Browser available for a while, and I know many of you are familiar with that. We also have a service from Respondus, which is an add-on to Lockdown Browser called Monitor, which it basically allows the webcam to be accessed of a student who's taking an exam, and it looks for suspicious activity, right? Various levels of success, but at least it gives you the ability to, they flag activity that looks suspicious, and it gives you the ability to review it after the fact. We haven't seen a large adoption of that. There's adoption in the Bryan School, but being outside of that, there's been sort of hit or miss adoption. The provost has generously agreed to help fund for the next year both Lockdown Browser and Monitor. We're trying to get a better idea of how many people would be interested in using it, because Monitor is you pay per 1,000 seats used, and so we want to try to right size the ask there. We're also very aware that some students have pushed back on installing software on their computers that allows you to monitor them in any way. And so I've been working with Andrew Hamilton on a response for that, because it's not really a technology response. They're calling it malware or spyware. From a technology perspective, there's nothing wrong with Respondus, and it doesn't harm the machine in any way. But the antivirus software can sometimes flag it as malware because of the actions that it takes against the browser designed to lock it down, right? So anyway, it's more of a academic integrity type response than it is a technology one. But I've been working with Andrew on the response that we've been sending out to folks who do push back. But anyway, all that to say, we're going to offer Lockdown Browser and Monitor to the campus. And if you feel like Monitor is something that you would specifically like to use, I'd love to hear from you, because we are trying to right size that budget ask.
So if anybody has any questions at this point on anything we've shared, we'd be happy to field those, or otherwise we can just turn it back over to your agenda.
Any questions for Karen, Todd, or David? So Karen, the odd silence in online learning, right?
I don't know if
Yes,
you can hear me or not.
Yes, go
Tom
ahead.
Jackson here. Yeah.
Yes.
There's been some discussion in my department that lockdown browser and any kind of surveillance software, I think, should be the lowest priority in supporting our students at this time. I think it sends a wrong message to them. I know we need to ensure academic integrity, but I think a gesture of good faith toward them would go a lot farther, and it's a heck of a lot cheaper than a software that they have to install. Thank you.
Okay, Anthony, but I heard what you were saying, which was the awkward silence might indicate that there are no questions for us, and that's okay, but everyone knows how to get a hold of the three of us if something else comes up.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Did she hear my question?
Oh, was it a question or were you, I apologize. No,
Did you hear the statement?
I heard your statement. Yes, I did.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Good. That's from the history department pretty unanimously that it's a really misuse of sources and a kind of a gesture of bad faith to our students. So.
Yes, I apologize for not acknowledging that. And there was some agreement in the chat box. So we've got that and noted it. I apologize for that. Sorry.
Great, thank you very much. And actually, what I was going to say about the awkward silence was not that there weren't any questions. That actually is very typical, is that awkward silence while we wait for questions based on the speed of typing or the connectivity speed of the person asking questions. So, but thank you very much. That was all very helpful. Before we continue, there was a question about budget, and I didn't know, Dana, if you wanted to take a few moments to address that. I did see you address it in the chat window, but did you want to speak to that really quickly?
If there's time, I'd be pleased to speak briefly to it. I indicated in the chat box that many of the costs that we're able to measure immediately are one-time cost of housing and dining refunds, for example, lost revenue from events like summer camps and performances. We know, because we have been diligently processing refunds, that we are probably refunding something on the order of $12 million to students across housing and dining. And as you can imagine, the cost of those refunds is a real hardship for these auxiliary enterprises. We don't yet have the full data. We are gathering it on lost revenue from other events. Once that's available, we'll be happy to share it. We would like to collect it through the summer. I think the greater concern for us is potential enrollment loss from students who may not come back. And that is a serious hit to our budget. And it's one of the reasons we are working so hard to encourage students to persist. And obviously, we won't know the cost of any losses until we realize them. We have developed a tool, which I previewed this morning, which allows us to look at various scenarios of enrollment loss across groups of students. For example, we know we're likely to disproportionately lose, at least in the near term, international students because of difficulties associated with travel. So as we work with this tool just a little bit and become comfortable with it, we'll share the results of some of the scenarios in advance. And then obviously when we have actual summer as well as fall enrollment data, we will share that. I can tell you right now, or at least the last data I saw a few days ago, shows that we're tracking about 6% down for summer enrollment, very concerning. Hence my earlier comments to you to please encourage our students to give summer enrollment a chance. It's a great time to recoup some lost progress toward degree. The final thing I'll say really quickly, in the form of some good news, you've all probably heard about the CARE Act legislation that brings funds to universities to mitigate some of the costs associated with COVID. The funds are dispersed in part on the basis of the numbers of Pell eligible students at institutions. And because we have a large Pell eligible population, we anticipate that we will receive a sizable sum. I believe the estimates are in the vicinity of $17 million of one-time funds. We know a little bit about how those funds can be used, but we're awaiting the formal guidelines. We know that half of the money must go to impacted students in the form of aid. We're delighted to disperse those funds, as we know that that will help our students, and we're working on a program to do so as soon as the funds arrive. The other half can be used at the discretion of the university with some guidelines not yet available to mitigate the other costs. So, for example, they could offset some of the lost revenue in areas like housing and dining. So I'll stop there.
Okay, excuse me, sorry. So two quick questions, Dana. The first one is related to student relief and whether you feel that that may continue into the summer. I know we've been discussing a little bit of that offline, and the other in the chat window about the possibility of staying online into the fall.
Happy to address both. First, in terms of extending what we've called the academic relief program into the summer, I recently asked Anthony to refer discussion of this to the Academic Policies Committee for input and guidance. We have many indications, and you'll hear some today, that many of our students are struggling. We know that this was not the perfect opportunity to convert to online instruction. So I do believe it appropriate for us to consider this. Personally, I would advocate for some form of relief through the summer, but I do want input from the faculty, and I'm hopeful that we can get that soon, because the earlier we can make those decisions and share that information with our students, the greater likelihood they will be willing to entertain summer enrollment. So more to come on that. And again, I thank the Faculty Senate Committee for the hard work to evaluate this issue. The next question was about the status of fall. We are very hopeful that we can begin the fall semester with normal operations. What we are hearing from UNC System is that these matters will probably be centralized calls from System as they were for summer. And they're looking at a kind of rolling timetable. They have indicated that they believe we'll know certainly by the end of May, if not by the middle of May, the prognosis for fall. And again, very hopeful that we will be solid in terms of face-to-face operations. There's one small concern out there beyond whether we can start face-to-face in the fall, and that is whether or not there could be some sort of temporary disruption associated with what's been called a second wave, when fall or winter has been flu season and is thought to be associated with a heightened increase of COVID. Should that happen, there could be another potential temporary disruption. So there's no certainty, there's no crystal ball. We're fortunate in the state that President Roper has much experience in these matters and many connections, and we're often among the first to get solid information from the epidemiological studies. So I think we'll be as well positioned as we can to have the best information and make the decisions in as timely a fashion as we can. And the only thing I can really do is commit to you that as soon as we have information, we will share it. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Dana. Moving on to the next agenda item, I'd like to get an update on the General Education Council work on the new general education implementation. So we have Erin Terranova and Amy Harris-Hoke. Erin, Amy?
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Hi, welcome. Thanks for giving me a couple minutes here. I'm going to start off and then I'm going to do a quick update. Then I'm going to throw it over to Amy to sort of fill in any of the gaps. But general education, which is now being called MAC, Minerva's Academic Curriculum, to not only rebrand the program, but help sort of delineate, are we talking about our current general education? Are we talking about our new program? So we can help faculty, staff, and students sort of be able to differentiate the two monsters as we kind of move forward with these sort of dual programs. So right now, the MAC is going pretty well, and I apologize because I had a document up and I just closed it. So give me a half a second to open it back up. My computer is very slow from home. Sorry. There it is. So where we are right now is we are developing the crosswalks, and these crosswalks are looking right now at current courses that fall into general education and where they may or may not fit within the new 11 competencies. We basically have 3 tiers. We have the GEC Express. Those are courses that we feel are just going to roll right over. There shouldn't be any need to really review or vet them. Just make sure that the SLOs for those competencies are now moved into these courses. Then we're going to have an expedited section of courses. These are courses that may need a little bit of tweaking, and we are going to form a sort of a small team, 3 representatives from General Education Council and 3 representatives from UCC to sort of be close readers on these expedited courses and just see exactly what needs to be changed or how they need to be modified to allow them to move fairly quickly through the process. And then the third category are new course proposals or courses that need extended revision. Now, there may be a course that tries to go expedited, and there's small teams like, you know what, we can't expedite this. This is a much bigger process, and they're going to roll it back to the department for a more thorough review and a more thorough revision of that particular course. This is still a lot in progress. The implementation committee has been meeting every Friday, and we're trying to work out all the logistics of that. So if anyone's wondering how exactly is this all going to play out, we are still working on those mechanics. Andrew Hamilton's office was taking the lead on that, but obviously his attention has been shifted to the current status and the current situation. So it's not on the back burner, but it's not right on his forefront right now for obvious reasons. Other than that, besides the crosswalks, we are developing heat maps. I should say Andrew Hamilton's developing heat maps in his office to see where courses and where seats are most readily available to our students. So if there is a competency that has a lot of seats or a competency that doesn't have a lot of seats, we may be able to better direct departments to go to one competency or the other to make sure that we can spread the seats out. Other than that, 3 recommendations went to General Education Council, and that was suggestion that foundational courses be included in the MAC, so 100, 200 level courses, and that the prerequisites for their major are added in also. So that's kind of where we are. Amy, do you want to talk about our timeline moving forward?
Real fast, Aaron, there are a couple of questions in the chat window. Did you want me to ask them, or can you see those?
I see them. Let me give you a second.
Started with Kimberly Hewitt.
Yeah, the phrase, we're calling it the GEC Express. We probably should call it the MAC Express now. That is sort of a tongue-in-cheek. I don't think that's the formal one. We didn't really vote on it, but it's the GEC Express, and that's kind of what we're calling it right now. Do you have a list of immediate rollover courses and the expedited courses? We have a very large spreadsheet with it, but we don't have them actually into their buckets yet. So we just have a very large spreadsheet. We haven't delineated which is going which. And as Amy has answered, yes, MAC stands for Minerva's Academic Curriculum. I think I got them all.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Aaron.
Yep.
Okay, so can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks, Anthony. So yes, we a few weeks ago did ask for pre-proposals for courses that could be redesigned or new courses to be developed. We did receive 34 of those. We are in the process of vetting those requests, kind of looking at them. We're sort of waiting for the heat map that Aaron discussed, or actually maybe it's more of a cold map to see where the gaps are. And we will be evaluating these proposals, and we hope to get information back to the people who submitted the proposals in the near future. And I know that's sort of vague, and I apologize for that. But as Aaron said, there's a lot happening right now. And so we are looking at those proposals right now. We're not going to meet on Friday because the university is closed. But hopefully at our next meeting, we will have some information for people about the status of their pre-proposals. That's all I have.
The other timelines that we're looking at for course proposals, we are looking right now at an October deadline for the GEC Express and new course proposals. That should fall in line with the current UCC deadlines in October. And then we are looking at having about sometime in February, probably February 1st, a second deadline for expedited and existing courses. So sort of new course proposals in GEC Express, those are going to be due in October to sort of coincide with what we're currently doing. And then expedited courses have a February deadline to give departments a little bit more time for those type of courses. So that's what we're looking at. Again, logistics haven't been ironed out, but we need to work with the registrar's office and make sure that is feasible from a logistical standpoint to have those deadlines so departments can start planning when they need to do their proposals, etc.
So 2 quick questions, Aaron, in the chat. So one from Kimberly and one from Judith.
We are trying to get everything up on the Provost webpage. There's been a little bit of delay on that. I apologize for that, but we're trying to keep all the GEC and MAC related stuff in the same location it's always been, which is on the Provost website. We're working on those logistics, and departments can still submit proposals for new courses. For the new program or for the current program, Judith? I know there's a delay there. Both. We're not accepting new course proposals for the current general education. It just becomes a nightmare. We still do, we're still doing current new proposals. Right now, we're just basically recertifying the ones that are already in the current GEC and keeping those so students can continue to move forward. Because if they're in the current general education, we want them to be able to continue to matriculate through. So we are still recertifying the attributes and the categories, but we're not accepting new proposals. We're not accepting new proposals for the current GEC. If that answers your question.
Great, Aaron. Are there any questions for Aaron and Amy? So one more question from Judith, Aaron.
Hey, Judith, this is Amy. It was a combination of both. Some of the courses were revisions of existing courses, and some were new courses. It looks like it was about half and half. So about half new courses and half redesigns of existing courses.
Great. Well, as always, we thank both of you for all of your hard work and your fearless leadership. And it seems like we're making great progress. So thank you so much. So the next agenda item, I invited Hunter Martin President and Olivia Tarpley with the student government to voice any concerns that they would like faculty to be aware of. Olivia Spencer, are you online? Okay, I did not see them in the attendance window. They did send me a list. So Dana, Andrew, I'll send you that list that they had, and we could discuss it offline. So, okay, moving on to the next agenda item. So the situation here is that the faculty voted on the undergraduate academic relief package, but due to constitutional challenges, that vote was not considered legitimate. Let's see, Chanel, did you want to speak a little bit to where we are at and what we need to do right now?
Sure. So what needs to happen is that we need to have a motion on this policy and vote on it electronically. We, of course, need to work on some of the constitutional things about voting electronically, but there could be challenges based on the way things are written, but I think we'll be okay. But we just need to do a vote so that we can go ahead with the policy.
Thank you. I think my understanding is that given that Robert's rules is the driving focus of how we operate, the real timeness was one of the constraints. So as we are here together, the vote will now hold. Before we do that, though, I'd like Andrew and Tammy, if you would like to say anything further about the relief policy.
Tammy, are you with us?
I think, Andrew, she said she may have a small, right,
Tech problem or something?
Well, I think she may be in another function right now, but she'll be logging in later.
Got it. I just came from another function myself. Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me. I just got to give the Advising Excellence Award to Jennifer Rich in CVPA, so it was a really nice day. So this vote is about a few things that the Academic Policy and Regulations Committee voted on, some of them unanimously, and they've been, I think, widely and warmly welcomed by students. We are concerned, as you all are too, about students working under difficult circumstances, and mostly what this is about, I'm now just reporting on the committee conversation, is giving students more options and more control over their academic lives for the rest of the term. The big changes, really there are two big changes, and then there's another change that's just a deadline change. The first big change is opt-in satisfactory, unsatisfactory grading. Students wanted a pass-fail option. Thousands and thousands of them across the system signed a petition asking for it. We did this instead. It's better, I think, in a lot of ways. So a unsatisfactory option that is on a per course basis that students will have until June 1 to opt for. Essentially how this will work is faculty will, as normal, enter a letter grade, and then students who choose to have a satisfactory or unsatisfactory grade in a particular course will signal that by filling out a form that we're building now, and then we will change the letter grade to the unsat grade after the fact. That's true in every program except nursing, where there's some licensure and other kinds of requirements that cause some problems there. Those students in nursing, by the way, have been notified of this. The other big change is we extended the WE deadline until June 1st also. That means that students can withdraw from one or all of their spring 2020 courses up until June 1st with no academic penalty. There are some financial aid considerations, and we're doing our best to advise them on those, but no academic penalty. And the drops from this term will not count against the 4-course 16-hour maximum cap. imposed by the system. The other change is a small one. I think some things I have said have been interpreted as advocating for this option. I want to assure you that's not true. All we did here was extend the deadline for replacing an incomplete grade with a letter grade by 6 months, because we wanted students to be able to have the whole fall term if that's what they needed in order to complete the course. So nothing else about incomplete grading changes. Same rules and policies apply more or less. What motivated this conversation was the anticipation that near the end of the term, we would have students who were sick or would have family members who were sick, and we would hate for them to have to take the W and repeat the whole term just because they missed the last week or two or a last assignment, which is after all what the incompletes are for. So that's it. It's those three pieces, and I'll stop now and listen for questions.
Kelly noted that this is for undergraduates only. Kelly, did you want to speak at all to the graduate policy?
Not necessarily anyone. Ooh. Can you hear me? All right. So the graduate policy committee met, and then the graduate council met. It's quite different, but in the same spirit of rescue grades. Anyhow, our policy is posted on the graduate school website under message from the dean.
Great. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Andrew. There
were a couple of questions in chat.
Yep, go ahead.
One was a question about how grades are computed, and essentially it's this: neither the S nor the U counts in the GPA calculation for the term. And again, I should have said this at the outset. These are policy changes that address what goes on this term only. The other question was about whether or not students see their grade and then retroactively ask for a WE. Yes, that is the policy proposal. And one reason for that is there's a lot of discomfort on the part of students about what their grades will be. And we really want them to hang in there because we think in most cases, the grades are probably going to be fine.
Excellent. Are there any other comments or questions?
By the way, quickly, last thing on this. This way of coming at WEs replaces what we would have had to do administratively with an option that the student can exercise. In the case where the semester ended and the student got a grade or grades that they didn't like, we anticipated, I think correctly, that students would then use the standard policy to ask for retroactive withdrawal because of extenuating circumstances. And we imagined that the extenuating circumstances in all the cases would be the pandemic. And it would be, I think, just silly for us to try to go vet all those cases. So we put that in the hands of students.
Great. Appreciate it, Andrew. And again, thanks to Dana and Andrew and others for continuing to partner with the Faculty Senate. So this policy was exhaustively discussed in APRC, and it also is the emergency vote that I asked the Senate to do, which was 95% supported. So the policy that is before you, we do want to vote on that. Chanel, I see a message for Chanel. We have no motions to revise the policy. Therefore, we need a motion from a senator to approve and then vote. So we do have a motion to approve in a second. Before we do vote, however, we did add the question about the summer only on an advisory basis. So we are not voting on the summer. APRC wants to discuss that a little bit more. So you will see that on the ballot, but that is advisory only. Before we did vote, though, Andrew, did you want to speak to your thoughts about the summer real quick?
Yeah, I can tell you that there are lots of indications that students are fatigued from online learning. There are some indications even that a lot of them, hundreds maybe, I don't know, we're going to find out, never really made the transition from in-person courses to online courses. That's just based on what we're seeing in LMS activity or lack of activity. So we're really concerned that without some more control over what happens in the summer, we will not be able to successfully encourage students who either reduced their semester credit hour load in the spring or dropped all their courses to be making progress in the summer. So, and I tell you that, I mean, they're really, really, you know this as well as I do, most of you, students are really, they're scared, they're concerned about their grades. Some of them, I think it's fair to say, are in a full-on panic about how they're going to complete. Many of them are working in environments that are not conducive to learning, their home environments. I got an email from a student just an hour ago asking me what to do because her parents are like in kind of a knockdown, drag out fight apparently while she was preparing or writing a test last night. So I mean, we're hearing a lot of these kinds of things. So what the recommendation here is that the Senate consider extending at least some of the relief policy into summer, though the summer is a different kind of situation because most of those courses were already planned to be online. But we really need students not to be afraid to jump into those courses and try to get them done.
Great, thank you, Andrew. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Well, actually, Chanel, we have an online form that we're going to email only to the senators. Chanel, is that okay? Okay, thumbs up from the parliamentarian. So senators, you will be receiving an email shortly. Please indicate your support for the academic relief policy as shown to you and stated. It's also in your packet as an enclosure. The second question about the summer is there, but it's advisory only. We will be meeting with the APRC to discuss that further, but you should see that in the near future. So go ahead and vote, please.
Hello, this is Jason Reddick. I don't know if anybody saw my comment in the chat. I'm on the Academic Regulations Committee that came up with these policies, and as of today, I think Anthony, you may have initiated it. We're supposedly about reevaluating this policy in terms of extending it through the summer. And so the reason I'm bringing this up is I don't know if that's going to override this particular policy we're talking about right now, or if we're going to be seeing a second policy come down the pipe.
Yeah, we'll be seeing a second policy.
Okay.
At this point, yeah.
I just wanted everybody to be clear about that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good question. Yeah, so the only policy we're voting on is this right now. We will be discussing the summer policy very, very soon. So, but it is a question on your ballot, but it's advisory only. So please go ahead and vote. Our magic number is 19, 51% of the Senate. So, and Cam, you can go ahead and pull up the responses that should resolve real time. Thank you, sir. There we go. Gotta love real time. So it is, well, yeah. Can you scroll over the blue Cam? That'll give us the actual number. Okay, so yeah, so motion carries. Wonderful. And you can see that for summer, so we'll give this a few more minutes. Is anyone having trouble finding the ballot? So it should be in your email, Jason. Brad, would mind maybe send it to Jason directly.
I got it.
Okay, great. Thank you, sir. Okay, since the motion has already passed, congratulations. So formally approved by the Senate. Right. So let's keep it open for just a little bit longer.
So Anthony, I just wanted to say that according to what's in the Senate bylaws, there's this 24-hour window that you leave things open. I don't know if that's before or after the meeting, but if you don't have anybody on here and somebody wanted to vote later, then that's a conflict there. And I can't tell if everybody's on here or not, but I just want to make you aware.
Luckily that we do not have all senators with us. So are you saying we should leave it open for 24 hours?
If you tell them that they are going to be able to do that, then you should wait before you, as the chair, declare the vote.
Well, I think we want to be err on the safe side. The good news is that we already have the votes to pass. So yes, Cam, let's leave that open for 24 hours just to be on the safe side. And certainly senators will be look for a policy that'll be giving us a little bit more agility as far as a little more freedom from dear old Robert. In terms of the new normal, which is kind of electronic voting. So, but Steve and crew and Chanel, of course, very good government committee are talking about that right now. But there will be a series of policies to look forward to at our final meeting in May. So, all right, congratulations. Thanks for all your work, Andrew. Tammy has joined us. Tammy, did you want to say anything about both this policy and then also some of the feedback you collected over the summer, for the summer?
Okay, sorry about that. Sure, I don't know what you might want me to add about this current policy, but I can certainly add regarding, sorry, I'm trying to flip between two different meetings, so let me end one of these.
Yeah, I think just maybe to speak to kind of the comprehensiveness of our deliberations and maybe some of what sticks out in terms of some of the comments that you received for summer relief.
For summer in particular, sure. So I asked the Academic Policies Committee to consider extending this into summer, and of the almost everyone except for two people have responded, and this was done very quickly today. But some folk, a small minority, were very much in favor of extending this as it is currently into the summer 2020 term. But the majority of the committee members were concerned about making it a blanket extension with the exact same policies or exact same options or the exact same timelines where students could wait until after grades were posted to make decisions. And some of that was rooted in the fact that the concerns that pushed us to recommend the spring 2020 academic relief policy don't necessarily apply for summer 2020. So the transition is not being made midstream. And so students are aware going into summer 2020 of that everything is going to be online and how it might look. And so there was some discussion that maybe we just needed to deliberate these ideas a bit more and perhaps do something, but not necessarily the exact same thing for summer as we've done for spring of 2020.
Okay, thank you, Tammy. Andrew, Dana, do you have a sense on when you would like a decision on this summer policy?
I'm very eager to get a decision as soon as possible. I'll emphasize again my concern that students are not going to enroll for summer unless they are comfortable that there will be some form of relief. I do realize that some of the conditions that led us to do this don't apply, but many others do still apply. And I think the cumulative impact of the stress and the disruption is going to have a very detrimental impact on summer enrollment, particularly if we don't come forward with a relief package. So I would love within the next 2 weeks at the outside to be able to make an announcement about what the plan will be for summer. I'd also like to say that, I appreciate the comments and the spirit of looking at this and perhaps tweaking some of the aspects. I would like to share with you, though, that our students are so incredibly confused already about the many choices that face them. And if we have a similar but somewhat dissimilar package with a slightly different range of options for summer, I fear that the confusion will become even more vast, and also the work for our advisors. We had at least one question in the chat box about how are advisors to cope with helping students make all these choices. If we have two different models, that complexity becomes even more great. Thank you.
Andrew, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I'll just add to that very quickly. First, I share the provost's concerns, but secondly, we shouldn't forget that we moved several hundred sections of what were scheduled to be face-to-face courses into the online environment. So we do have some of the same concerns that we were worried about, that we were concerned about when we adopted the existing policy. It's a lot of students who will now be learning in an environment that we're hearing from them in strong terms they don't enjoy.
Great, thank you, Andrew. And I'll add a final thought, which is that as the provost has mentioned, we're entering concerning times. Not only is there a drop in enrollment for college-age students before the COVID-19 crisis, obviously, given our current situation, being as user-friendly as possible, I think is important. So obviously the integrity and quality of our instruction is of highest priority, but I think in this current situation, I think specifically as Dana had mentioned, people are trying to decide whether they're going to take summer courses or not. And so in my opinion, as user-friendly, as student-friendly as we can be, I think would be very important. So Tammy, if you wouldn't mind, if you could take the initial comments that you've gathered, which I really appreciate at such short notice, and put that in our document. We can just probably append that ongoing document that we had, and we can continue our discussion online. And I did want to say, I think that using Google Docs as a kind of asynchronous way to communicate across committees, I have found to be very effective. So thanks for your leadership, Tammy. Okay, moving on, we have a provost search update from Andrea.
Hi guys, I had to quiet a barking dog there.
No problem.
Yeah, I'm just here to give you an update on where we are with the provost search and moving forward. If you can move to the next slide with our timeline. So from the start, we had a pretty ambitious timeline, which we've largely maintained, even with the developments around COVID-19. And I want to send a special thanks for the intensive work from the Chancellor's administrative staff and IT, and the search committee and Isaac Miller for all the additional work that needed to be done as we shifted our plans from in-person to virtual. In terms of the selection of the finalists, we completed our semifinalist interviews at the end of March. And I just want to say that there's a lot of excitement about UNCG and about the Chancellor, which is very gratifying to see. There was, we heard more than once that UNCG is a special place. I think all of us collectively could feel good about that. So we had the semifinalist interviews and we have our slate of finalists, and I'll go into some detail about that for the second slide. Now we have a very strong and diverse pool of 5 finalists, which were invited. And so the next couple of weeks, we'll have virtual meetings, which will be conducted with the various constituent groups around campus. There will also be an open forum that will be held that will include a short presentation, about 10 to 15 minutes, and then a Q&A period. Listed here are all the dates for the 5 candidates. And we'll be following up shortly with an email that will detail this information. For the open forum, there will be a CV available within about 2 days before in advance of the presentation. And these will be made available on a secure Google site, as will the link to the open forum. We're also asking for people to submit questions in advance. I will be moderating, and so I would very much appreciate robust questions coming from the university community, but we'll also take questions from the gallery as well. So that's our format. Again, an email will be coming shortly that will outline what's coming up. And again, we're extremely excited about the slate of CAF finalists who are going to be coming forward. There's my next slide. I can't say thank you enough for our really great search committee, dynamic group, really great work, and it was a pleasure to serve with every member here. And Isaacson Miller, our search team, also did a wonderful job. So that's my really brief and quick update. Questions?
Questions for Andrea? As we're waiting, mad kudos to Andrea for her fearless leadership. Did a great job. Bottom line is those interviews are pretty exhausting, and I know Andrea did so much work behind the scenes as well. So wonderful job leading us through this and identifying really a very strong set of candidates.
I think I got a question about why questions in advance. Well, for two reasons. It gives us an opportunity to really surface what's on the university community's mind. And these will be something that we could potentially ask across candidates. So that's one reason to do so. In addition, should there be technical problems, we would want to have questions in the kitty to be able to address to the candidates that are around issues that are important to us. And again, we'll still be taking questions from the gallery as well, but it'll be nice to have both.
Yeah, it's a great question. And Moses, I also wanted to add, kind of building what Andrea said, we're going to do a content analysis of all of the questions. So what that means is that the top questions, most frequently asked questions, rise to the top. It doesn't mean that other questions are not as important, but given such a large number of people anticipated, that's kind of the way to control and ensure that the questions are, like Andrea said, the important questions rise to the top.
Yeah, and I should say too that at the Provost and Chancellor's Town Hall, we had over 900 folks there. So that's also something to consider. We're working through lots of logistical plans to be able to work our way through questions, but this way we can ensure that we have both responsive to people who are online, but also have sufficient depth of questions.
Great. Any other questions for Andrea? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Okay, so the next agenda item invited Andrew to just talk a little bit about the budget and kind of legislation given the COVID-19 situation. I do know that they still intend to meet in April. Andrew, go ahead. I don't see Andrew. Andrew? Okay, so Andrew is not with us. So the next agenda item is the faculty assembly updates. So the faculty assembly did pass the collegiality standard, and Wade has an update for us. Wade?
Well, that was the big update. Is thanks to the work that you guys did at UNCG Faculty Senate drafting this document, we on Friday passed it. In addition to that, I just want to take a moment and not only thank you for that, but thank our delegation, which includes Sarah Daines, Anthony, and Andrea, has really done a great job of representing UNCG. And most notably for you to remember next year, Anthony ran in a contested election and won the secretary role of the faculty assembly, which means in Game of Thrones terms, he has a seat at the small table advising the president, which means UNCG is well positioned to take your concerns directly to him going forward. But that's really the big news. Everything else was at faculty assembly was a lot of more questions, whereas we've already heard we don't have those answers yet. Thank you. Any questions?
And also wanted to say special thanks to Wade for leading us so well as our lead delegate, and thanks everyone for your congratulations. I did want to say also that given the leadership of David Green, we've actually established a meeting with both the Board of Governors chair as well as President Roper for every 2 weeks. So part of what we want to do is make sure that we gather faculty concerns and questions and ensure that both the Board of Governors and President Roper are aware of those. So great job, everyone. And definitely special thanks to our Faculty Senate. Again, your participation in drafting the standard. So as you can see, the standard before us is much more general than what we had drafted. So one of the questions that we have to ask ourselves is whether this standard goes far enough or whether we still want to consider something a little bit more specific. So does anyone have a thought on that as far as looking at the current draft? Is there a sense from the Senate whether we need to consider drafting something a little more specific?
Anthony, this is Kim Kapler-Hewitt. Can I ask a clarifying question, please?
Go ahead, Kim.
So what was linked in our materials for today's meeting, the document that you have before you, is that the one that our Faculty Senate drafted or the one that the UNC System Faculty Assembly passed?
Yes, that is the one that the UNC System Assembly passed.
And you said that it was different than the version that we drafted, more in the sense that it was made more general and less specific. Is that correct?
Right. The guiding concern is the more specific, the more it could be a double-edged sword, right? So it could be used against the very people that it could help if it's too specific, because then it can be interpreted at a very specific level and subjective level. So so David says he recommends doing something more specific. Any other thoughts regarding this? We can continue to discuss it, but again, great work with everyone. I can say with a great deal of certainty that if it wasn't for UNCG, this would have never passed. Our Senate Committee on Faculty Welfare was having a tough time with his subcommittee in terms of providing feedback, and UNCG not only provided feedback, we provided an actual policy for him to respond to. So again, it truly is not just words, but because of UNCG's Senate work, we now have a policy for the entire system. So this is quite an accomplishment for all of us. And the last thing I want to do, since we have a little more time, and again, thanks, Wade, for your work, is to look at the draft P&T policy that is being discussed. So Kim, if you could just bring that up really quickly. I wanted to get people's thoughts regarding this. There's a lot of excellent data that has gone into drafting this document. Basically, what we chose is a what we call an opt-out approach, which basically means that all tenure-earning faculty immediately get 1 year, 1 year extension, and basically the only dates to be aware of is that if you are in the queue to go up in the fall, that your deadline to opt out, and that is to go up on schedule, would be May 31st. And then for next fall, by March 1st, or sorry, next spring, March 1st, 2021, if you want to opt out then. So Jeremy asked the seminal question, which is opt in and opt out. So an analysis of, and we'll share this document with you, of other universities and how they addressed it. It's basically, okay, so Andrew is trying to join in, is that there was about a 50%, pretty much 55 to 60% opt in versus about a 40% opt out. And essentially the primary criteria, so several things. One, the opt-out is actually against our existing policy. So that's one thing that we have to be aware of, is that the opt-out is actually going to be an emergency policy and suspension of our existing P&T guidelines. But the reason why we decided to do that was because ultimately we felt opt-out really provided immediate support, in particular for faculty that might be struggling. So the concern for opt-in, one of the guiding concepts that I think drove the committee was a concern that there might be some stigma, as well as if a faculty member is already struggling, having to seek permission to opt in and receive an extension would be a more difficult task. To answer your question, Jeremy. And we will discuss this in some detail. So this is by no means finalized, but the P&T committee, along with a few other ex officio, voted unanimously to craft this policy. So. Right, exactly, Diane. All right, any other further thoughts about this? So Jeremy asked the question, why go through the chair and not just directly to the provost? Dana, do you have any thoughts? You're with us, you want to share on that?
I think that's a good question. If this is a policy, I'm not sure that levels of approval are required. It may be more a matter of information, because chairs are charged with soliciting the letters for the dossiers. So they're having that information in a timely fashion is important for that reason. So I think going through the chairs is not so much an approval, perhaps it's just a notification.
So maybe we could soften that language a little bit to make it clear that it go directly to you with carbon copying, or I guess we're trying to
be fine with that personally. Yeah, I don't think the intent is that chairs have to sign off on it. They just need to know what's unfolding so they can modify their work schedule and their process.
Great, thank you. Good question. Chanel, one suggestion that may come from the governance committee may be to have a more general policy that deals with other emergencies. Yeah, I agree. Chanel, we definitely need to talk about that also in terms of how we govern ourselves. Clearly, our current situation, there's really a required need to be a little bit more agile and also vote beyond Robert's rules of real-time deliberation, even though my understanding, Chanel, is that, as you said, Roberts is going to be possibly amending that as well, right? So, okay, well, I appreciate that. Real fast, Andrew has joined us, so Andrew would like to provide us a quick update because the issue is still on the table. So, Andrew, go ahead, sir. The issue being faculty salary raises. Andrew, can you hear us? We can't hear you, Andrew, so if you can hear us, you're on mute. Yeah, Diane, we could clarify that language. That's a really good point. So we'll clarify that language in the draft policy. So as we're waiting for Andrew, so Andrew, whenever you can join us, just let us know. The process for that policy will be to get it approved through the governance committee, the government committee. Then it will come to you, the Senate. Then it will need to be approved by the general faculty. So final call for Andrew, or otherwise we will adjourn. Andrew?
This is Andrew. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yep, we can hear you loud and clear.
My apologies. I was late to join in, and if I've missed a lot, to be honest with you. You heard my name called. Can you help me say the question again so I can help chime in or give my thoughts?
Yeah, Andrew, just give us a budget and legislative update, in particular, some of the things that you might be hearing around faculty salaries and anything else you'd like to share with us real quick.
So that's a complicated question. I do know that the BOG met today, or the subcommittee of the Board of Governors met today dealing with budget and finance. And part of their question, or part of their budget and finance agenda they put forth today, which is just a change in what it looked like a month ago, that they did put in, I think it was $2 million in faculty. I'm sorry, I've got a lot on my plate right here. Faculty retention funds, excuse me. They have put in the money in for faculty retention to ask for the legislative body to consider. As you can imagine, there's a lot going on right now, and we're essentially waiting on really the economists to send down what their revenue projections might look like. There's just a lot in the air right now. I apologize. There's a lot on my plate right now, but if you need me to clarify, please, by all means, ask me a question.
So Andrew, more specifically, what are your thoughts on the faculty salary raise? And also, I know that the veto was one vote short. What are your thoughts on any movement there?
All right, so I'll go ahead and say I believe, actually, I do know the veto and all the discussions dealing with the budget from last year are basically out the window. Considering what's happening in the last couple of weeks, the House and the Senate and the governor are all on the table looking to create an entirely new budget. This is unique, and when it comes to raises, I can't speak for the university. All I can tell you is I'm looking at what's coming from, or what's being looked at from the state level. I don't believe any kind of raises will be in the near future for anyone. We're going to buckle down. We're looking at probably another recession like that back in 2011, 2012.
Okay. All right. Are there any questions for Andrew?
This is Dana. I see a question in the chat box that I think is important to respond to. Everything that I have heard indicates that raises for promotion are going forward. There's been no pause or no declination of that process. So I think that's really important to note.
Yeah, it's a good question, Diane. And then I'll kind of end, Andrew, with at least I heard rumor of, and tell me if it's just a rumor, that there may be some headway in getting faculty, university and community college faculty and staff put back into the same group as the other state employees. Have you heard anything of that ilk in your travels?
That is, you said it yourself, nothing more than a rumor. I just cannot provide more on that. I can only speak on what's happening at the General Assembly when it comes to what Dana spoke on to. That's a university issue, but literally what is happening in Raleigh is day by day.
Damage control right now.
Pretty much. But I will say that I will add this: the state of North Carolina is a rather wealthy state, but we're able to plug some holes that maybe other states can't. When I say state, I mean everything from prisons, K through 12, higher ed, Department of Health and Human Services, everything. We're just lucky that we have a substantial rainy day fund, but the rainy day fund can't last forever. So we're sitting in a better position than most states.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for that. And thanks everyone for your time. Do I actually have one more comment here? Yes, Chanel, go ahead.
This might not be the best place, but it has come to mind. So many of our employees in the city and the state are losing jobs. And I may misunderstand it, but I know our housekeeping staff are under contract, and I don't really understand it, but I wondered what is their condition, and are there any efforts to maybe have faculty or others come together and have some fun for them? Just because these are people who work with us every day and they are very vulnerable, and I just don't know how that works, and it's just been on my heart to ask.
This is Dana. I think that's a very important question to be asking, and we're still working diligently to understand the forms of relief available for all categories of employees. I don't have a clear answer for you here on this one, whether or not there will be anything that is a form of subsidization to the university to allow us to provide relief, but I will ask that question and we will get information back to you as soon as we know more, because in the event that there's nothing formal or institutional that can be done, I would applaud an effort for us to try to come together as a community to do what we might. So thank you. We'll get you information on that.
Yeah, Dan, I think I would speak for most of my colleagues that if we could organize ourselves around some type of relief fund, I'm sure most of us would contribute. So yeah, let's definitely talk about that, and at which point you feel we should do that. Let's maybe just talk about how to do that, and I'm sure a lot of us would contribute.
Hi, Anthony. It's Andrew. I want to say one more thing, if you don't mind. And April 28th is the date that the General Assembly will come back into session. That has been on the calendar for a while. Talking with our local delegation and other folks within the General Assembly, when they come back on April 28th, their first job or the first thing they'll take up will be unemployment insurance, and it'll be as well as dealing with small business loans. And that's mostly because the money is coming down from the federal government. So on April 28th, you'll see a movement out of Raleigh on to make emergency adjustments that they have. But outside of that, you won't probably not see much then. But you're looking at unemployment insurance and small business loans coming out April 28th. I hope that answers some questions that you just asked. What do we deal with some folks who may not be working? That will be your first movement.
Great. I appreciate that, Andrew. So final announcement, the next Faculty Senate meeting or gathering will be the General Faculty meeting Wednesday, April 22nd. We are negotiating whether to have another Chancellor and Provost Town Hall. So we're still waiting word and whether that's confirmed. But if it is, likely it will be 3 to 4 General Faculty meeting, then 4 to 5 a Town Hall. We did learn a lot from the last town hall. We were not expecting quite so many people, so we will be changing venues, either to a WebEx webinar or events area, or we might go straight to Zoom in their webinar feature. So stay tuned for that. As always, thank you so much for your time and effort. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Okay, Amy says yes. Second, outstanding. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Be safe and take care. So Cam, I just wanted to say, as always, thanks. Also, see, James, looks like James has logged off. Oh, then James. Yeah. Thanks, man. As always, you're a rock.
Woo, good team.
Yeah, go team. Brad, as always, thank you very much for all your help. People don't realize how much work goes into successfully hosting this. So you guys all this wonderful job, and fortunately, unfortunately, depending how you look at it, you're going to see lots of emails, and I'll see you guys in the virtual world soon. So, but definitely, we have to have a big party in the Love My House once we can see each other again, right? Took that.
Sounds like a plan to me.
All right,
Anthony, I've passed the hosting back to you, so you've got control to stop the recording and all that.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, we'll see you later.
All right, take care.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Cam. And Cam, I'll get back to you about the ballot for the at-large elections. It's just been a beast of a day today. So.
Oh, did you get my email with the ballot you wanted me to create and send to you? I sent it to you and Brad.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yep,
I
I
was
got
just
it.
making sure. Okay.
Yep, I'll take a look at it probably tonight, and we'll try to launch tomorrow. So.
All right, sounds good.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you. You
All right.
too.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.